Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about The Mind Robber by Peter Lynn, directed by Davis Maloney. Now, this story is 5 parts long, and originally it was written as a 4-part story. However, with the Dominators, was supposed to be 6 parts long, but because of timing and stuff, they couldn't have wrote an extra episode, so they had like a spare episode. So this story was originally supposed to be a 4-episode story, but the producer, Peter Burnett, he basically insisted to write an extra, like a prelogue episode, to set up the story. Now, the story is known as well for its very trippy surrealness, which is a type of genre that I love. You know what I'm on about. When franchises, they have like an episode or a story where they go into like another dimension or a different universe or like a mind place, and basically anything to do with logic and narrative goes out the window and you just get some like weird scenes. Personally, I love it when stories do this, and I must admit that it does hit me in the right places in terms of what I look for in a story. So I do apologise if this video is extremely dull. I do find that these videos I make, these vlogging videos that I make, they the least interesting ones that I make are the ones where there's a story that I absolutely love and I'm just constantly just rambling on about how much I like it and without really criticising it. So if this episode is really boring, I do apologise, alright? But I absolutely love this story, and I find as well, because I'm like a movie person, I like camera shots and framing and stuff like that. So I find that these kind of trippy storylines, I don't know if there's like a word for it. I always find that they are some of my favourites. We did have one with the first Doctor era story, the Celestial Toymaker, which is sort of like a trippy one. But this is basically the second Doctor version of the Celestial Toymaker, and it is this style to its T. It has everything I like it, and I find that directing wise, it brings out the best out of its director. So David Maloney had his work. Had a very great basically set up for him to do something amazing, and it really worked. Episode 1, as I've stated, wasn't originally supposed to be. So when they filmed episode 1, they had 0 budget, they had no money. And so what they did is they set the TARDIS in basically a world of nothingness, and what they did is they got the set and just painted it completely white, and that's your story. You had TARDIS, a TARDIS crew, and an empty void. You also have these robots. I don't know if I can explain what the hell they are, but a fun fact, these robots actually are props from another show in the 60s. I believe it was called Into the Unknown, something like that, or It's not Missing from the Unknown, it must be Into the Unknown. And in return, they got to use a Dalek in one of their episodes. So that's pretty interesting. And I really like the first episode. Jamie and Zoe, they see their homes basically, and they get tempted out to the TARDIS. And there's just such a eerie atmosphere about it. Like, you don't know if what the hell's going on. There's bits where like the TARDIS is playing up, and then Jamie and Zoe can see these robots, and Zoe starts screaming. And I know it's all about like opinions and stuff, and it's nothing really, can't categorize it, but the woman who plays Zoe has the best scream of any companion, in my opinion. I mean, it's high up there with Bonnie Landfield and Carol Ann Ford, but I think Zoe has a bit step up, mainly because with them two, when they scream, it's a great, powerful, makes you jolt of how loud it is. But with Zoe, she generally feels like she's in danger. It reminds me a lot of like, do you know, like you're holding on to a cliff, holding on to something, and then all of a sudden you're like slowly coming off the edge, something like that. That's what her screen reminds me of. And in the first episode, has one of the greatest cliffhangers where the TARDIS explodes, and you see Zoe and Jamie on the TARDIS console. Oh, by the way, here's a fun fact. There is a Facebook page to Zoe's bottom of that scene. That is just absolutely hilarious, and I love this fan base. But that's a bit strange to me, so let's go. Indeed. And there's a bit where she's like, Jamie, look, and then she just starts randomly screaming, and it's absolutely terrifying. And you see the doctor, and he's like completely fine. He's just like lying in like nothingness, just closing his eyes. But the way it's shot, like a very close up, and Zoe's scream, it just really, you're just what the hell am I watching? This is thrilling. You have no idea how the hell they're going to get out of this one. I also say as well that this is probably the second Doctor's most 11th Doctor-ish story, if that makes any sense. When Stephen Moffat took over and had the 11th Doctor, I won't delve into this too much, but Matt Smith's era, especially his first 2 seasons, had what people call a fairy tale feel. And this story is basically a massive fairy tale. And you even meet fictional characters. So it does feel, if you like Matt Smith's era, especially his first 2 seasons, I highly recommend this story. You're going to love it. Patrick Troughton as well acts a lot like Matt Smith in this one, in my opinion, as well. But you know, Matt Smith did say that he based his performance on Patrick Troughton, and you can clearly see it from this story. Although he says he got it from Tomb of the Cybermen. But anyway, I digress. So the Doctor, Zoe and Jamie, they land on this like place where it's like the trees are made out of words, letters, and so it's strange. And they get separated at the start, and Jamie sees a red coat, and he goes up to him and he gets shot, and he turns into cardboard, and the Doctor has to like rearrange his face. Now, behind the scenes, Fraser Hines had chicken pox. And usually when, you know, there's an actor out, they would find a way to write them out or be immobile for a bit until they're well and come back. But here they did something really trippy. The Doctor puts the Jamie's face, he has to play these like games, these riddles, and you've got like the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, and the Doctor has to put them back onto Jamie's face. However, he gets it wrong. And so, for like an episode and a half, Jamie is played by a completely different actor. And it's very eerie. Like, he doesn't, like, act any different. I gotta give it props to this guy. I can't remember his name. But he did actually a pretty good job at feeling like an imitation of Fraser Hines. It's just perfectly imitation, where it's not so much that it's like literally like a spot-on impersonation, which kind of leaves like an eerie feel to it, but it's not it's not bad enough that that you don't believe it's Jamie. It hits that perfect balance, and the Doctor has some really strange moments where he sees Jamie on a cardboard. He sees like a hand with the letter H on it that's been crossed off. He sees like a safe, and then he sees mist with the M and M missing out, with a cut out, and then he sees a well, and he works it out that Jamie is safe and well, or something like that. So I probably messed it up, so if you're confused, just don't worry about it. So it has like a lot of that like stuff, and they meet up with this guy who speaks like in this strange sort of dialect. He has like a funny way of speaking, and then the Doctor slowly works out that he's a fictional character, he's not real. And it's Gulliver from Gulliver Travels. So yeah, it doesn't really play that much into the role. But he keeps popping up, and he becomes kind of like the fourth member of the crew as he constantly appears up. Jamie later on meets up with Rapunzel, and I really like how in this story Jamie comes back from, this is after he gets his face back, so Fraser Hines is back. And one thing I really liked about Enemy of the World is the more action-packed Jamie, and here Jamie is back as an action hero as he climbs up this mountain, and it turns out to be Rapunzel's hair, and she's like, "Are you a prince?" And with him being like a Highlander and with his old-fashioned costume, it does really feel like a fantasy. Like, this isn't really Doctor Who; it's like a fairy tale, and it just for some reason it really works here. It might be the more cinematic look of the 60s. Maybe, I don't know. Zoe is really well written in this one, as the Doctor and Zoe have scenes together. Jamie kind of splits off, and we have the whole Doctor Who trope of splitting up the TARDIS crew and meeting them in the end. And the Doctor and Zoe have to basically fight the Medusa, and it's really cool how basically all this logic works, where something that's real and then they work out that it's not real gets turned to stone, but then the Medusa is already stone and it slowly comes to life, and so there's a theory that she might be real technically. And there's a strange moment as well where in an earlier scene we get them encountering a unicorn chasing after them, and they basically say, right, it's not real, and then it turns into stone. Well, they say it turns into stone. It looks like cardboard. So they clearly know how this reality works, and so later on the Doctor and Zoe meet the Medusa, and the Doctor has to like really convince Zoe that it's not real, and Zoe is like, but it is real, the Medusa is real. So that must mean, I think, this could be a complete like fan theory, or there might actually be something out there, but I think by the time Zoe, in Zoe's time, I've come up with a theory that either the Medusa was turned out to be real, or a creature that's very much like the Medusa myth exists somewhere in Zoe's time. So that's really interesting, and yeah, you get the whole companion, the female companion being the one that needs like saving basically, but it's a very short scene, and later on the Doctor has basically they have like a swap around as they get introduced to I don't know if it's like a superhero, supervillain, a comic book character. This one doesn't actually exist, it's made up for the story, called the Carcass. this big muscly guy, and you fight him, and if you beat him, then you basically control him. And Zoe has to then convince the Doctor that he's not real, and the Doctor's like, but I've never even heard about him before. I don't know if he's real or not, which I find kind of funny. How he basically knows how this world works, but because he doesn't actually know this, never heard this character before, he's like, maybe there's a chance that it is real. So then Zoe has to fight the carcass, and you actually get a pretty decent fight scene where Zoe basically owns the carcass's ass as she constantly like flips him over, grabs his arm and flips him over the shoulder. And there's a bit where the Doctor tries to do it and he fails, and then Zoe has to come up and nail her down. That is just a fantastic scene, and it really shows how much Zoe is just such a great improvement written-wise to Victoria, who I think was a great character and she had lots of potential, but the writers keep putting her as the damsel in distress, where Zoe is a new big breath of fresh air. And yeah, just well done to Peter Lynn for bringing out a fantastic scene. And so the carcass then becomes like an ally to him as they get closer to what's happening. And there's a great moment as well where Jamie who's having like his own little subplot, reads what's happening with the Doctor and Zoe, and he's like, because there's like this machine where it basically predicts the future. Like he reads it and then it happens. And then the Doctor explains later on that this is a universe of fiction. In our universe, which for this purposes we're just going to call the history universe. The fact is history, where we have stuff that happens and then it gets written down and gets processed. But here in the fictional universe, things get written down, then they come into events, into reality. So it's just what? That is just fantastic world building there. And so they work out later on, in about halfway through episode 4, basically what's going on, and about these robots that are trying to kill him and why are they after him. Basically, there's this guy who's been, who they call the Master, which is really confusing for new, but just if you're watching this before you actually watch the episode, it's not the Master, it's not the Time Lord one. He doesn't get introduced until the third Doctor era, so it's a completely different character, so don't worry about that. Unless you have like a headcanon that says he is, then by all means, Doctor Who has no official canon, thank God. But that's a rant for another time. So this guy, he basically, in this world, you have this mind that connects how this world functions, and basically it needs to be a creative mind. But this guy is basically becoming old, and he wants the Doctor to take over his role and stay in the land of fiction forever, and basically be like the ruler of it, which the Doctor obviously refuses. And there's this great moment where he traps Zoe and Jamie into a book, and they become fictionalized, so that they're under his power. And there's a great moment where the Doctor meets up with him as he escapes, and they keep repeating the same thing, and it's really eerie, and the Doctor's like, feels like he's really defeated. And then he meets up with the Doctor. Then meets up with all these fictional characters then, and have like a reunion scene. And then later on, then he meets up with Jamie and Zoe again. But this time it seemed real, and they seem like they're perfectly fine. And then they're like, Doctor, let's get back into the TARDIS. And then the Doctor walks in, and then Zoe and Jamie start like really, like in a really cheesy way, giggling to themselves, like. So you can see the actors, Fraser Hines and I can't remember who plays Zoe, but you could tell they were having such a blast on that scene. And then the TARDIS kind of like folds forward, and you see the Doctor in this like weird contraption. And my God, that bit is so cool. And so the Doctor gets taken back to this land, and there's a great moment where the Doctor, because they're in the process of basically having him become the ruler, he basically gets the same powers as this guy, and they have like a battle of fiction, shall we say, as the Doctor frees Zoe and Jamie from his power, and he keeps sending fictional characters to kill Zoe and Jamie, but the Doctor then creates other fictional characters in it, and it's just really cool. It reminds me a lot of Sorcerer and Stone, the Disney film with the wizards, and they constantly like having like showing off their abilities. It reminds me a lot of that, as there's bits where the Doctor's like, and so the carcass came and saved the day, and the other guy's like, but then he realised his true enemy, Zoe and Jamie, and so he pointed his gun at them, and then the Doctor's like, but the battery ran out, and then he was quickly foiled by like a sorcerer man, and then the writer then is like, but then he got attacked by another sorcerer man, and they start fighting, and then Blackbeard comes out of nowhere, and Sir Lancelot and D'Artagnan from the Three Musketeers, and it's such a cool scene. It's a very short scene. It doesn't like play out, but man, that concept alone could have been an entire episode on its own. I am kind of disappointed that I have a problem with this story. A lot of concepts should have had like their own episode to themselves to explore, especially this battle with the Doctor and this guy. It would have made a fantastic 25-30 minute episode. And so the Doctor then destroys the machine and they escape, which kind of it's really confusing, because they explain that basically somebody has to like control it, that basically this world gets like self-destructs basically. So does that mean that fiction there doesn't exist anymore? I don't know, it's really confusing. Also, yeah, it's very meta how in this world where there's fictional characters, the Doctor, Zoe and Jamie, who in the real world are fictional characters, are in it. So, so there you go. So this story has a much underlining theme of the power of fiction and how much stories can affect us. And, there's a lot of like hidden meanings and stuff as there's the whole world with the fiction coming before what actually happens, and it's just so well written. So there you go. That's The Mind Robber. Fantastic. Watch it. It's one of the you must watch if you're gonna watch any second Doctor adventure. It would either be Tomb of the Cybermen or this story. So highly recommended. Check it out. So join me next time where we meet familiar faces again for like the 4th time in the second Doctor era. So join me next time for The Invasion here on the Doctor Who Marathon. I'll see you then.